Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Anna Rees and I am the director here of Fremantle Arts Centre. Thank you so much for joining us all for this very exciting evening. I would like to introduce Ingrid Cumming, who will do a welcome to country for us all this evening. Ingrid Cumming is a custodian and traditional owner of Whadjuk Nyoongar country, who we are so honoured to have us welcoming us all. Ingrid, over to you.
Thank you. Kaya yoga maman yaw calling corporate wearing Gina yarang nuna wan jenjun ku corporate bujawa. To my friend Anna, who I used to go to high school with just behind here actually at John Curtin. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for inviting me to do the Welcome to Country here, or Whadjuk Buja here tonight. I'm here in beautiful Whadjuk in Fremantle, with an incredible lineup of women who all of them have played pretty significant roles in my life as inspiring women. Me being, can you call 39 young, by the way? Is that still relevant? Excellent. The grey hairs on my head are telling me a different story, but as a young Nyoongar woman, you know, to be given the honour to do Whadjuk Buja, or Welcome to Country, has come because of incredible leaders like the women who you guys are going to hear from tonight. I won't be hanging around. It's been a big day for me, but it's been a big couple of days. And I'd like to start the Welcome to Country with a minute's silence in honour of one of the greatest Nyoongar matriarchs that I have ever known, who put this book on my shoulders several years ago. The modern day Fanny Bulbuck, as I would like to call her, the incredible Margaret Colbung, who unfortunately went on to the next realm a couple of days ago. So if we can all start with a minute's silence in memory of her and all the incredible matriarchs that we've lost recently. Thank you, everyone. Nana Marg wasn't the only matriarch that's led us. Like I said, there's the Fanny Bulbucks, there's the women tonight, there's many women in the crowd, there's many others who have inspired the next generation of young people to come up and to continue on the legacy of being Murit Yogas, or strong women. So again, it's an honour to be able to do the welcome tonight. And what I'm going to do is, although it is with a heavy heart we reflect on those we've lost, we need to celebrate those who are still with us and those who will come up after us. So, in the spirit of celebration, I would like you to join with me in ceremony, because believe it or not, spiritual ancestors do not discriminate. They don't care the colour of your skin, they don't care man, woman. Even if you're an Eagles supporter, we will still love you. Go Freo, what a season. We care about good head, heart and spirit, and I want to invite you all, women, men, people here together to join in ceremony to celebrate the incredible women that we're going to hear from tonight and the ones that are yet to come. So all you need to do is clap your hands. Again, if you're a Docker supporter, you've done a lot of that this year. Now your turn. No joke. So the song, which is connected to a place called Kalamurda here in Perth, or Kalamunda, as the locals say it, is a very special space. Kala meaning fire or gathering place, and Murda meaning ceremony. And the song is about calling the ancestors to come and be with us all, to see us, smell us, feel us, our energies, our love, our commitment, our passions, and to make sure that we all walk forward stronger here together into the future on Nyoongar country. So I always end my welcomes with this story. My dad, Professor Len Collard, Murich Marman. I'm not just a Nyoongar, even though Dad's Nyoongar. I've actually got Whadjuk connections. I've got Dutch and English and Russian, and the physical form of a Black Russian. How good's that? But back in the day, this country had some really incredibly confusing laws that Indigenous and non-Indigenous people couldn't be together. But Mum and Dad listened to their cart-court wearing, their head, their heart and their spirit. And me standing here 39 years later is proof when Indigenous and non-Indigenous people come together, clearly beautiful things can be created. So in the spirit of reconciliation, let's walk forward together from here. Whadjuk Nyunga Budja, welcome to beautiful Wayilap Fremantle. May we all celebrate the future together here in this special place tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. It felt wrong to introduce her, of course, as my fellow schoolmate from John Curtin Senior High next door, but it's quite incredible to see what an extraordinary woman she always was, actually, and always will be. Not much to me tonight as the Wodjula woman standing on stage, but I would like to make a couple of acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge the elected members from the City of Fremantle here tonight. Jenny Archibald, thank you for coming. I'd like to acknowledge our funders, the Department of Local Government, Sports and Creative Industries, along with the Indigenous Visual Arts Support Program from the Federal Government. Disclosure, Strong Black Women, was originally scheduled to take place during National Reconciliation Week, but like many things was affected by COVID-19. We're really thrilled to have been able to reschedule this event to take place just a few days after the conclusion of NAIDOC Week, which has been a busy, extraordinary, exciting week for First Nations people and our broader community. I've had the pleasure of curating this series with my wonderful colleague, the Curator of Visual Arts here at Fremantle Arts Centre, Glenn Isaac Pilkington. And we're really proud that this second edition of Disclosure reaffirms our commitment to creating space for First Nations people and within the work we do here at the Arts Centre. It's really significant tonight for all of you to be sitting here amongst Revealed, this extraordinary exhibition which celebrates emerging Aboriginal artists from across Western Australia. And also significant because of the complementary exhibition, Ni Yeyi Norga Wangani, Listen Speaking Now, which centres the voices of Nyoongar yoga and honouring their creative legacies, curated by Yabani Kikit. Within the current exhibition series at Fremantle Arts Centre, we see First Nations art and culture surveyed and celebrated and revealed, but also in Ni Yeya Yoga Wangani. We celebrate tonight the creative and cultural legacy of our Nyoongar yoga, including senior artists, emerging artists and curators, and those that are no longer with us. As a Wodjula woman in a position of power here, I do look at these incredible women standing over here who are about to join us on the stage tonight, and my definition of strong when I think of them is warrior women, strong women, emotional women, empathetic women, women of incredible power, and it's a real honour on behalf of myself and all of the team at Fremantle Arts Centre to welcome them all to the stage tonight.
Thank you, Chloe, and thank you, Ingrid, as she slipped out the door quickly. It is an honouring space, and to have her hold this place really lovely for us. It's really beautiful. My name's Carol Innes, and I'm your host moderator for these beautiful women that are sitting beside me. And I'm currently the co-director of Danger Cooling, which is an Aboriginal-led project based at the University of Western Australia. I've been involved with the arts for quite a long time. Been involved with my community, I think, since I was in high school, doing what I was doing and wanting to change the world. And currently the co-chair of Reconciliation WA and a board member of the Art Gallery of Western Australia. Sitting beside me are some beautiful women. And I am really glad that we had to reschedule this, because in Reconciliation Week, I was sick with COVID and I wouldn't have been able to do this. So it wasn't changed for me, it changed for lots of others as well. But I think in the world that we're living in and what we're all managing and carrying every single day of our lives since COVID hit all of us, our world has changed. And the women sitting beside me have been a big part of change in many facets of our community, leading every part of the arts, whether it's through the visual arts, the performing arts, and lighting design in the theatre production. And every single one of them I've had, other than Chloe, a very strong relationship with. But I've recognised and seen Chloe's work throughout the work that she's done with the Black Swan Theatre Company. So I would like to introduce you firstly to Chloe Bullen. Chloe's a Wardandi, Nyoongar, Badimaya, Yamaji, and she's the Aboriginal curator of Indigenous art and also the head of Indigenous programs at the Art Gallery of Western Australia. And Chloe was previously the senior curator at the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander collections at the exhibitions at the Museum of Contemporary Art. And Chloe really loves to have all these big titles in her name because it's followed her right across here again. She's also the co-chair of Indigenous Voices, a program that she initiated, and Art Monthly Australasia, to develop a cohort of Indigenous or Aboriginal critical art writers. And Chloe is also on the board of the International Association of Art Critics Australia and is currently the chair of the board of the National Association of Visual Arts. Well done, Chloe, and thank you for that. You can clap. And the next beautiful lady is doesn't need any introductions as a Fremantle local as you can be. Sharyn Egan is a painter, weaver and sculptor, and is a member of the Stolen Generation who grew up in Nyoongar Mission School. Much of her artwork is a commentary on her life as a Nyoongar woman and associated with trauma, emotions and deep sense of loss and displacement experienced by Aboriginal people. She is never afraid, because I have seen her blow out of her comfort zone and sing. I never thought I'd see Sharyn Egan sing, but she sings, and she's pretty deadly, Sharyn, too. She works in a number of mixed media, including painting, sculpture, the woven form, site-specific installation, and choosing materials such as ochres, resins and grasses that connect to land. And especially near her home, the lake systems in the southern suburbs of Perth. And in recent years, Sharyn has been awarded several prestigious public art commissions, one at the new Perth Stadium, Elizabeth Quay and Egan Square, and she has exhibited here at Fremantle Arts Centre, including the current exhibition, Near Yorga Wanging. Sharyn is also on the Revealed Exhibition Selection Committee and the Revealed Advisory Group. Thank you, Sharyn. Chloe Ogilvie is a Yamaji Nhanda woman from Western Australia, and she graduated from the WA Performing Arts Academy in lighting design. What a fantastic achievement that is, Chloe, because many of our people don't get behind the scenes. We've been a part of the presentation, but to have you behind the scenes creating the work for our mob to present is a feat in itself. So thank you for being in that space. So Chloe works mostly as a designer, but has crossed over into other areas such as production and management and producing. And Chloe has been a resident artist with Black Swan for 3 years and co-curator of the inaugural Mali Festival, a festival of amazing events that have been performed at the State Theatre in Perth. Chloe Ogilvie is also a member of the arts collective The Farm, where she has designed and produced, managed a range of shows including Throttle, Cockfight, Drover Award winner, Ninth Wave, Tide, a Helpman Award winner, and Cowboy. And other highlights include Bigger, Blacker at the Lobioic Theatre in London, is it? LD, Spinifex. The Black Theatre? Yep, the Black Theatre. You can tell me all about that in your yarn. Spinifex Gum, Bungle at the Perth Festival, and The Visitors. And she's also currently working on something else in Queensland now, which she'll tell us all about in our yarn. And this beautiful lady doesn't need any introduction from me. I'm sure every single one of you have had an engagement with her over many parts of whether it's a performance or just being a friend. Gina Williams is a Nyoongar singer-songwriter and a rare performer who captures the hearts and imaginations by many of us through the power of song. I remember meeting Gina. She was our facilitator when she was working. I don't know, any country people in the audience?
Oh, no.
Yes, I'm going back. We've got to go back in time because she has forged her place in our hearts, on the television, and been leading a space for many of us for a long time. Milbindi was when I first met her. And she also went into giving presentation skills for people to learn how to speak to camera behind the scenes, and I was in one of those sessions, so thank you, Gina. Love, loss and joy all mean the same no matter the words, whatever the language. Within less than 400 speakers of this language left, Gina brings with collaborator Guy Gauss, who's in the audience today. Hello, my brother. A modern take on the ancient traditions, matching powerful storytelling, guitar brilliance that's credible incandescent voice. The natural rhythms of Nyoongar language are perfectly captured, and her disarming onstage presence comes from the heart that simply refuses to surrender her voice and language to silence. Thank you, Gina. So with the skills and amazing attributes of all these women, we're going to do a little production that they don't know about. No, just kidding. Look at their faces. No, I think tonight's a bit of yarning. It's a little bit of stop, listen and learn. We're not going to have questions at the end. We're going to soak up our experience tonight, listening to these beautiful women in the journey that they've taken through the arts to enrich all of our lives in all the productions, all the processes that they've been, and the fight that they have endured to get to the point that they have. So firstly, I might just talk to Sharyn. Sharon's shaken here beside me. But I think Sharyn, as the elder of the space we all sit on today, I think for you, just to start up a yarn to say, let's think about what's been your inspiration to capture you to where you are today. What has inspired you to take the journey that you've taken against the odds and bust out of the bubble and move into your arts practice? Tell us a little bit about your journey and what's inspired you.
Inspiration is so many people, so many younger people, older people. I've never really thought of things like that, you know, because you don't get asked those questions. What inspires you? Until I was older, because I was a mature age, about 37 when I started getting into the arts. And yeah, I think...
That's better.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, so many people along the way, like my art teachers at Perth Tech back in 74 or something like that. Yeah, and then that's when I left school. They said, what do you want to be? And I said, an artist. And they said, oh, there's no work in that. So they sent me to do graphic design, which I failed. I hung out for 2 years because I got to hang out with artists. Yeah, and then I just travelled around Australia, and then when I had kids, I sort of had to wait until they'd gone to school. Like the first one started school. And I thought, oh, good, I'll go back to art school and do something. But like the full circle, I've come right back around while I was 37. And yeah, then I got pregnant for the second one. So I had to put it off for another 6 years. So maybe 40-something when I finally went back. Yeah, but I love every minute of it. And meeting people like yourself, Chloe, Bal. Yeah. Bal over there. This lovely yoga there. Glenn. Yeah, there's too many to name. Like, as you go along, you meet all these people and you don't realise that they're an influence or inspiration or... Yeah, so hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Sharyn, you've been an advocate for Stolen Generation. You talk about your journey through the arts. Tell us how that has captured you through your space. What were you talked about that in a number of your work, that you're a member of the Stolen Generation. What does it actually mean for you, travelling through your art practice?
I think I know what you mean.
It's a personal journey that you've taken. You've taken a personal journey, you
so
talk about it, you share it.
Yeah, I started at TAFE and then went to art school. And then when I went to uni, I just happened to see this sign saying contemporary... associate degree in contemporary Aboriginal art.
Yep.
And I've gone, what's that over there? And it was Sandra Hill was running this beautiful course that got a lot of us artists through. And I said, no, I'll put off that, I'll go and do this. So it was a step out for a year and do this wonderful art course with other Aboriginal people from all over Australia, like there's east, west, north. And it was just, Sandra just brought us all together, and she was a really big influence, like just seeing her. She was so articulate and so sure of herself, and she knew, and she sort of nurtured all us into that as well. And I was just, even though I was a mature age student, I felt like a little kid, like, just in awe of this woman. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So Sandra has that effect on many people with her generosity that she gives to all of us and how she cares for all of us as women. Thank you, Sharyn. Chloe, as the youngest in the group, you've gone through another process of, busting out in a different space into lighting. What was your dream? Was that your dream space? And what has inspired you to take that step?
I actually just did it in high school to get out of going to class because I really didn't want to go to school. And we had a theatre. I grew up in Tom Price, which is a small mining town. Rio Tinto built this huge performing arts centre but didn't put anyone in it or teach anyone how to use it. So we kind of figured it out ourselves, and once I learned, I would do all the school assemblies and just kind of coasted through high school skipping class to be like, I've got to go help, go do the lights. It takes me forever because no one else knew how to do it. So they didn't know that I was just like sitting there doing nothing. But then when I was in year 12, we had a visual artist / set designer come up who's a Freo Perth local, Matt McVeigh, and he was talking about set design in a school called Whopper and how you can actually make a career out of doing art and stuff like that. And I just thought it was wild. So I moved to Perth and went to Whopper, and now I'm here.
Well, that is inspirational. You can inspire all of us. Thank you, Chloe. But I think that is a beautiful journey, and I think stepping into a passion space and to have that opportunity, I think that's quite precious. Thank you, Chloe. Your journey has taken you to the east and back again, and it's great to have you home. Yeah. So tell us about you. I mean, we talked a little bit about Sandra Hill. We know is your auntie. Your mother is also an inspirational lady, but tell us what's been your inspiration to bring you through your journey as curatorial space.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to talk about them because I grew up in an artistic family, of course, the Hill family, and Christopher Pease is, of course, Auntie San's boy, my cousin. So it feels a bit like there's a dynasty, but and I remember actually when we first met Sharyn coming to the classes, because I used to pop into, it was a bit like you, I used to not go to uni and stuff and just go to other people's uni and watch them do work. And I remember thinking really clearly that I didn't want to become a visual artist myself because those roles were taken. And that was really confirmed for me when I actually started work at Artists in Residence back in the day. So this was with the wonderful Mr. Pickett, Shane Pickett, of course, rest in peace. But I was 20 at the time when I started in that. And actually, I started because everyone had said, go and do art. And I said, I don't want to do art, I want to do something else. And Auntie Sand was the one that said, well, this job's come up. Have a look at this. And because I was 20, I was, everyone else directed what I was kind of doing. And so I went into this space, and it was Shane who said to me, actually, in all our families, there's people who have roles, particular roles, and yours is not to take that artistic journey, but to actually be that igniter and that facilitator. And I took that really seriously, and I've basically done that ever since. So I'm 48 now, and I have been working in the visual arts that entire time, pretty much. I had a brief stint at Yuriakan for a while, as well as a producer, thinking they were similar roles, and they're absolutely not. So it was really them, I think, that kind of pushed me into that space, but not as an artist. And then what's interesting sitting up here is just the connections that everyone has, because actually when the first time I met Gina, talked about Milbindi before, so Gina was not much older than me, and she was working as a journo, of course, at Milbindi, and she came to our little gallery, Artist in Residence. It was on Hay Street, and you interviewed me and you did the story. And this is when we were so young. My God,
This is in the 90s, everyone.
very early 90s, I think it was, and it was also, and immediately I was like, oh my God, you're amazing, and I was looking up to her, and she was like, not very much older than me at all, but. And then with Sharyn, of course, I met Sharyn through Auntie Sands' course, and actually we've just had a chat, and actually I think that we're related through Glenn's side of the family. I'm related to Glenn too, he's Pilkington, that's my nan's side, and you and I have had this extraordinarily long history together as well. So I think probably like everyone, it's the connections that you make, particularly with other women, and particularly for us as Nyoongar women, because we are, we come from that matrilineal, matriarchal line, that you see the other women around you who have to take on these enormous roles. And it not only inspires you, but for me, it was also like, I need to be in there, in the trenches, because I don't want to see my auntie and my mum and everyone else just doing this forever and ever. I want to be, getting in the trenches as well and supporting them. And as it turns out, I quite enjoyed it. So, and I still enjoy it.
Thanks, Chloe. And finally, Gina, you don't have to sing to us, but you can just tell us your journey. I think you've had some amazing inspirations in your life, the work that you've done with elders to work through the space that you're in, but just maybe share what has been a big part of your journey to where you've come to for today.
Yeah, okay. I think the, gosh, this is loud. I think the big... it's an interesting thing, because I was surrounded by people telling me why I shouldn't do things, or why I couldn't do things, or why I, probably wasn't good enough to do things. So I had a very different experience growing up. I'm the Nyoongar foster kid who can't read music, who happens to play music. It wasn't until I found my biological family when I was about 18, 19, and I started meeting these incredibly powerful women. My mum sang like an angel. It never made sense to me that I seemed to be the only person in my world that could sing. And I knew that I heard things differently to other people, but I couldn't explain what that was. It turns out I've got this thing called perfect pitch. And so, of course, you don't hear stuff like normal people do for some reason, but and I can't tell you what normal is, but I had people telling me that I didn't have the aptitude for music. So I worked as a journalist. I finished school barely because my phys ed teacher and my media teacher stuck by me and said, just finish. You don't have to be brilliant. You do have to finish. So I finished school and ended up in summer school, and that led to a cadetship at the West, and suddenly I could have gone for an interview to be an apprentice motorbike mechanic, which I got to say, the inner little bogan in me, because I was dating a boy that drove a Charger, so the idea of being a mechanic, I did think about it for about 5 seconds. And then something inside me went, you know what, nobody thinks that I could get that journo job. I'm just going to go to the interview. And that's another crazy story in itself. But I just found myself going, why not? We live in a world that tells you why you shouldn't, but why not? I'm never going to be, I never want to be that person that goes, you can't do that. Or unless it's illegal or immoral, like Chloe, I'm going to have a conversation with you if you ring me up one day and tell me you're going to run away with the circus. But, I think that's, and the inspiration came suddenly when you open yourself up to that, people get alongside you. And I also have to say, it wasn't just the women, it was the men as well. I've had some really powerful male role models, and the one person that really single-handedly I owe everything to is my adopted father, the man who gave me the first 12 years of my life, and he died giving me his absolute best, and I'm forever grateful for that, you know. And I didn't really have good relationships with women until I became an adult, and it's, you know, and it was through working and interviewing and, you know, telling other people's stories that I came to understand those connections and really see the value of that. So, can I also just say that I interviewed Chloe, I worked with Matt McVie, I wrote a song for you, and I've loved you for as long as I've known you.
She also taught me as well. The arts plays an amazing educator through everything what we do in every part of our lives. If you just think around this room, the clothes you're wearing, the art on the wall, and to everything that comes through, if the arts wasn't present in our lives, imagine that for the moment, because when I think about the journey that Aboriginal people have faced over time in the exclusion space since colonisation, our arts have been the one thing that has allowed us to celebrate who we are. Sharyn and Chloe, this probably will fit to you, but I guess one of the most powerful statements has been the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And the way it's wrapped up and the artwork around it that was left for people to digest, to the Australian public. What do you feel about that, Sharyn, as part of that message to Australia through the arts and the Uluru Statement?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, but, you know, art is, from Aboriginal people, art is a way of storytelling, sharing culture, sharing knowledge, which is what we like to do. Like, you know, so the art's out there and it's for everyone's enjoyment. And same with the Uluru Statement of the Heart. It's like sharing knowledge. Like, it's just, when you read it, it's just, oh my God, like, this is brilliant, like, wonderful, and it's just there. It's, I don't know how to explain it, but it's, yeah, it's just for everyone to learn, understand, take it on, be part of it. Yeah.
Chloe, would you want to add to that? There was a powerful tool that the arts were used to create a message to the Australian people.
Yeah, it's a tool, and the thing I've fought really hard for in the last however many years is not just the kind of embedding of those sort of principles and values, and not just the tools, but actually the people in senior leadership positions that can actually enact them. And for me, it's great to have the statement, of course, and it's great and it's wonderful to keep talking about these things, but we all know, sitting here, that we have been talking about a lot of these things for a really, really long time. And it's one thing to sort of keep talking, but it's another to see actual action. Now, part of the Uluru Statement, obviously, there's a treaty component and there's blah, 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 and there's lots of other things, but what I'm entirely sick of is the rhetoric that then goes along with that makes everyone feel really great, but actually does nothing to move the situation forward in a proper way. And part of that is because we need people in senior leadership positions who can enact the values that holds. So my thing goes beyond kind of, yep, feels really great, but then what? And we need, you know, every person in this room to actually act as allies and supporters to not only take that journey, but to actually create space for, you know, all of the Aboriginal people that need to be in these senior leadership positions to get this thing going.
And it's more leadership than just our people, it's the whole country. Gina and Chloe, do you want to add anything to that at all?
I think the great thing about art is that it's a living thing. It's you look at these paintings and they're living documents. And our stories, what they tell us is that our stories largely don't change. That, the maps and the landscapes that are apparent in these, they've been here for 3,000 generations, and there's been lots of significant artworks over a long period of time where, Aboriginal people have talked about waterholes that on the landscape don't exist. And then eventually what happens is that the science catches up. And I think that the importance of things like the Uluru Statement and the artwork is that document, it marks a point in time. And what I hope is that it continues to be a living document and it becomes the touchstone moment for this nation where change begins, where we look back, where we can actually look back in our history and go, that was the point where things started to shift and things started to get better. I think that history's page will turn to prove that one way or the other.
Thanks. Chloe, did you want to add anything at all?
I guess the thing with the Uluru Statement of the Heart is it's a beautiful statement and things like that. I toured with a group called the Spinifex Gum Choir, and they actually did a vocal petition for the Uluru Statement of the Heart. We had hundreds of thousands of people put their voice to a song that we printed on vinyl, took it to Parliament House, handed it to Ken Wyatt in 2019, and nothing. Not a word ever since from those kinds of people. So it's just art can do as much as art can do, but we need people to actually make change.
Make the changes. Thank you. It's also been a big part of the political change when you consider the flag as well. It's been a big part of our political shift, and that was a part of an artistic creative for the land rights in 1972. So just all of you, think about what has been your most exciting project that you've ever worked on, and or if you're currently working on, that has lifted your heart and given you hope for change. What you have shared, just want to share that with us tonight. And whoever's got that first thought can go first.
Yes, you can keep going, but keep
that there. Remember, we were involved in a work at the MCA, Museum of Contemporary Art in Sydney, and I was invited over, I think, and Chloe was working there. What was your title?
It was the longest title in the world. It's Cat's Ice, is the shortened version of it. Curator of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander collections and exhibitions, Cat's Ice.
Yeah, so I was invited to go over and work with, they get a couple of artists every year, so 3, maybe 2, to work on, can you help me out with the...
So we commissioned Sharyn actually, I'll just say the framework, because this is your story, to undertake a massive sculptural installation at a place in the southwest of Sydney. It's Darug country, so I think many people are under the misconception that, not a misconception, but Sydney's very contested. It's they wore the brunt of colonisation, so lots of contested locations there, but it's Darug country down in the southwest of Sydney, bordering Gadigal country further up. And we commissioned a sculptural work to be on where the first Aboriginal children's home was in the country, where people were first taken to be educated, in inverted commas. So that was why we got Sharyn there.
Governor Macquarie, he thought he would get a few Aboriginal kids, and there were some Maori kids as well. And he put this in this home in Parramatta. That's where it first started. And they said, we'll gather a few of these kids and see if we can make something of them. And then later on it was moved out to Oakford, which is out past Mount Druitt and all that. Druitt. Yeah. And so I got invited to work with the local people over there. There was elders and just local people, young mothers, there was a lot of them. And decided, what would we do on this site? So they got, it's called site specific. And so there was myself and Tony Albert and a dance group, performance group, Bullen, and we just sort of had to sort of interpret what we felt about this site that's got this history of, and the fence is still there, and the concrete, no, the fence isn't there, the concrete block that the place was on, and so they fenced it off because there's lead in there or something. They can't do anything with it, there's poisoning, and so all these kids were growing up. And then all the parents had found these kids, and these kids were from all over New South Wales and New Zealand. So the parents have found their kids, so they sort of just went and camped down the river so that could be near their kids, and the kids could know that they're there. So that's, and they called it Blackstown. Yes, that's where Blacktown got its name. And anyhow, well, worked with the local people, like, what do you want, what do you like? And then we came up with flowers, like, I just think kids' flowers, they like flowers, and they represent beauty, peace, love, death, everything. Your flowers are always, you know, what you give and what you take and what you receive and what you grow. And so with the team, we just, and the Sydney flannel flower, I don't know if anyone knows about that, it's only about this big. And it's really hard, you can't, I don't think people can grow them. We got a little bunch from the, I was going to say pet shop, flower shop. From this flower shop, and it was $70 for that little bunch of flowers, so we could see the real, they're little soft like flannel. But so we made big 8-metre ones, and yeah, with the community, they wove them. It was all woven rope, and it was all handmade, and yeah, so as a team, we just had this beautiful, and after that, you could see them from these two big highways. I don't know the names of the highways. Yeah?
M5 and the M2.
Oh. Yeah, so they were in view of, you know, people travelling in and out of Sydney and past Sydney. And then later on, and it was Darug people that were originally from there, but a lot of the people there were taken as these little kids. So there were people that didn't know where they were from, or, you know, where do I belong? So it's all this mix, but they all accepted each other as this is where we're from. And then the council gave that land back to the Darug people because we put that big symbol in the middle of there. And it was so that's my most beautiful. Yeah, thanks.
So I went back to TAFE to learn language. I could have gone left for Feng Shui or right for language, and I thought about it for a moment, but I went and did language, and my teacher asked me why I was there, and I got real shame and said, I don't know, I should have gone to Feng Shui. And no, I actually went on a bit of a rant about, you know, how embarrassed I felt having to go to TAFE because I wasn't even a good student, and embarrassed that, you know, I had to learn something that should have been my birthright. And the lady, because I was the only Nyoongar in the room aside from the teacher as well, just to add insult to injury, and she kind of went around the room and went, why are you here? Oh, go away, please. And then anyway, this lady went, oh, it's not your shame, darling, it's ours. And something cracked, and so she said, why are you here? I said, I want to write songs. And one of the first songs I wrote was a little welcome song called Whadjuk. I don't know if any of you might have heard of it, but and then Guy and I, like, first of all, I had it checked with my teacher, and then she made me teach it to the class, and then one of the ladies in the class was in a choir, and suddenly 30 people knew this song, and I felt like a rock star. And, you know, I'd never imagined that anyone would want to sing anything I'd written, and there they were. And fast forward to now, Guy and I started doing workshops in schools. There was no one really doing anything. You know, I taught my kids this welcome so that when they hear an elder speak, they'd be like a meerkat and, oh, I know what that means, you know, and feel proud. And I thought if we went into schools that kids would feel real proud, but kids don't feel real proud at first when you go to school. And what we experienced was that, you know, I'd start with language always, and you'd see the Nyoongar kids, particularly in these schools incursions going, oh, don't. But more recently, you know, Guy and I, how many have we done now, you reckon? Close to 600 incursions? We've done close to 600 incursions across the country. And, you know, with very little, like the Education Department has not supported us in this. We just go and do it because we work with the schools. And what we find now is that the kids, they hear the language and they pop up like little meerkats and they go, that's my language. And what's been really beautiful is, you know, they don't just know Whadjuk, but they know other songs in the catalogue. And more recently we did a workshop and we always open it up to questions. Does anyone have any questions? It's very mixed results, but one of these kids, she stuck her hand up and she goes, do you do requests? And I, yeah, Bub, what do you want us to sing? She goes, I just want to hear you sing Nyoongar. And I thought, like, we're seeing a change in this lifetime. I never thought we would see a change, and it's happened in a blink of an eye, like these kids. And that's, I think, that's where the hope is. We can't be looking at each other waiting for change because it's missed us. It's going to be, we need to work with younger people like Chloe here who are, you know, who probably do slide under the radar because they're not run-amucks, they're good kids, they're just, you know, maybe a bit lost or school just doesn't work for them. We need to find ways to reach our kids and not just Nyoongar kids because it's not enough. Like, I want everyone to know #5 words of language. If you live on this country, you should know at least 5 words, and not the towns, the suburbs or the swear words, but other words. And you know, that's our thing with these kids as well, and I think that's where the change is. But it's not enough for Nyoongars to be doing that. We need our allies, and you guys are allies. By being here tonight, you're allies. You're showing us that you're allies. So we want to make sure that, you know, everyone has that beauty, because it belongs to all of us. If we call this place home, then this is ours. This is all of ours. And I think that's kind of the most exciting thing is seeing. And we did this little opera thing last year, and there was 50 kids on stage with us. But with that, we asked the opera. We kind of insisted with the opera that. And they were beautiful about it. We said, we want to have at least 10 places for Nyoongar kids because I wanted to be able to reach children. Now, they might never actually sing opera, but they had 10 weeks of professional lessons and they got to stand on a stage where our elders were forbidden to tread. I want you to think about that. In this lifetime, there were elders in that audience that had never set foot into that building. And they were dressed up and they were so proud to see these little kids up on stage. I don't think there's anything more exciting or rewarding than seeing our future right in front of us manifest like that.
Yeah. Thank you, Gina. Chloe, would you like to add something that's been your best, what you've given, something you've been involved with?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, the Spinifex Gum Choir. We toured here for Perth Festival back in 2020, I think it was. I'm going to look at Anna. One of the Annas will know. Yeah, 2020. And it's a group of young girls aged between, I think the youngest is 11, the oldest is probably about 19, and they sing a catalogue of songs that were written for them by Felix Riebel of the Cat Empire, along with the Yinjibani elders who wrote songs in language for them. So they're from Cairns, it's a Sydney choir, the songs are from Karratha, Roban area, it's like a whole Australia-wide project, but touring with them was probably the most fun I've ever had. And I remember we went to Sydney, it was one of our first shows, sold out the Sydney Opera House, and Malcolm Turnbull just got kicked out, being kicked out for a little while, I can never remember. But he was in attendance that night to come and see, and I was talking to the girls beforehand, I was like, oh my God, you've sold out the Sydney Opera House, it's amazing, it's the big hall. And they just look at me, they go, yeah, we've done it before. I was like, all right, sure. But I think that project was probably the most special one that I've worked on.
I had to think about this because I've had a really long career as a curator. And I've worked with, and actually, little braggy bit too, because my brother actually sang in that same opera.
Oh, the Black Elvis, he's gorgeous.
With Gina. So we keep it tight. What's that?
Willie G. Nadoc last week.
Oh, yeah, Willie G. Nadoc, yeah, he gets around. Again, why I chose not to sing either, because we're already doing that in our family. But probably one of the biggest things that I worked on was a show at the MCA, and it was for an artist called John Marangel. He's a Yolngu artist. He's internationally famous. He is one of the artists who did the work at the Musée de Quai Branly, but he has been renowned for a really long time. And Yolngu's from Arnhem Land, Northern Territory, and where he comes from, which is Maningrida, they speak, his first language is Gunungu, but they speak 15 different languages up there. So in a tiny community of about 850 people. And we were tasked to do this solo show, the biggest one he'd ever had anywhere. So we did this amazing show. There were 164 barks in that show. It was predominantly a bark painter. And those barks were shown in a very contemporary way, because I'm not an anthropologist, I'm a contemporary curator. So that's the lens through which I view all of the artists that I work with, Sharyn and everyone else. We did a publication with it, and it has won multiple awards, and the show won awards as well. Everything was bilingual. Every label, every didactic, the entire book, completely bilingual. Now, someone whose Gunungu isn't their first language, I had to learn a lot of Gunungu to actually do the show, because you cannot have a conversation with an artist and also help write their didactics and all of their information. And the key part to this, and it's an interesting thing, language, when you translate from English into an Aboriginal language, completely different to translating out of that Aboriginal language into English. Completely different. Different schemas in your head, different ways of understanding what those things mean. So we translated out from Gunungu into English. And that book I'm really, really proud of. But what happened after that? So there was this huge show, and it won all these awards, and that was great. But I was working with the Tate at the time as well, and we managed, for the very first time ever in the history of collecting in the Tate, to get one of John Marangel's barks into their collection as a contemporary artwork. Now, for those of you who don't work in the visual arts, you might not understand the significance of that, but that is massive. The fact that the Empire saw our work as contemporary artwork and not as ethnographic, they didn't anthropologise us. It led to the current exhibition they've got, which I helped on, which was the 1991, which is a date, like a significant land rights date. It led to that show. It just opened up all of these doors in essentially what is the colonisers' space. And they hold a lot of our work, but they had never purchased and acquired a bark work. And that was massive. So that was probably, for me, that was a huge moment, yeah.
Gina, tonight you've talked about allyship. You've mentioned it a few times, and I wonder if those in the room are the allies. And I can see a couple, many that I love and care about are sitting right here in this space. So the world's changed in recent years with us as a people being engaged a lot more, particularly in the public realm. What are your reflections of this wave of allyship? And what are the opportunities that you've had and the challenge that you've experienced in this process going forward?
Okay. That's something really big to... Let me just pick out a couple of things. So, The Nyoongar nation is the largest of the Aboriginal nations, both in terms of population. We are 40,000, we identify as Nyoongar. And we also occupy land mass. Our country is roughly the same size as Spain. So I love that we're the biggest, just quietly. When you consider 40,000 people, less than 400 speakers, that's less than 1% of the population that speak Nyoongar. And so our challenge is to shift that. And as I've said, it's not enough for Nyoongar to do that. There's got to be balance though. So what happens is that we speak about these things and we say, things that are needed, but we still want to drive the bus. What has happened historically is that our well-meaning allies get excited for us and they want to help us and they end up doing it for us, and so we end up with what we call learned helplessness. And we don't want to do that anymore. We're capable and we're contributing, and it's time for us to be driving the bus. So, how can you be an ally to us? You can sit and you can listen like you're doing now. You can stick up for us in our absence. So at the dinner parties when the inappropriate things are being said, you can champion us. You can go and learn, not just bowling up to random Nyoongars and trying to practice your language on us, because that's not going to work. I can tell you that's not going to work, because a lot of people don't speak the language and there's trauma attached to that. So suddenly starting to walk up, hey, kaya, kura, don't do that. And please don't, if you do that, don't tell them that I sent you, okay? But go and learn. The interwebs is actually your friend in this. Curtin Uni do great courses. Look up Reconciliation Australia. If you do know Nyoongar people, ask them. That's the best starting point. Respectfully ask questions. Not too many, because that gets a bit cheeky, but I think that's what they're the main things. But yeah, the challenge is that we want you to be with us, but we don't want you to do it for us. If you can just maybe curb your enthusiasm and go and learn 5 words. That's a good starting point, hey?
Chloe, what about you? I mean, you've got enough with collaborations and all what you've experienced, and people who think they have a better way articulating what we paint and how we paint. And
mine's gonna. I always feel like I'm the cross person in these things, because
you are.
I am, and I'm just and I feel really tired and old and kind of just pissed off with a lot of things. Because it's been such a long time that I've been working in this area. So, for example, I am chair of the National Association for the Visual Arts. It's our peak body for artists. I am the second woman in a 40-year history and the first black woman. It's 2022, for fuck's sake. And sorry, excuse my French, but it is what it is. And that's why I get mad, because I'm still waiting to see I'm going to start my rant, I'm sorry. But I'm still waiting to see the director of a visual arts institution who is black. That has never happened in this country, and it's 2022. Still waiting to see it. Fought hard to get people in those spaces, not just myself, a whole range of much younger people than I. I'm still waiting to see us on boards. I don't think we can expect the same people, and Carol, you have very good experience with this. You're on a million different boards because people keep asking the same people because they don't understand that, well, one, because we do it, because we're committed to our community and to actually evolving and making sure that we've got all the bases covered. But there's only a handful of us. There are other people you can actually develop professionally, send them to board courses. We can run our own business, but also we can run yours. Trust me on that, because we've had to spend a lot of time code switching and we know how to do our shit. So I guess that's where I get cross, because I keep seeing these same things come up again and again and again. So when I look at allyship, again, I think about action. I think about how do these things translate into real action. We can do this. We have people who can do these things in the community, or people who can be developed to do these things. So that's where I want to see the allyship. Don't just talk about it. Actually do it. Be that change. Do it. I implore you. I don't want to die and not see this happen. That's it for me. I'll rant over. Yeah.
Chloe, did you want to add something to that, Chloe?
I mean, I guess it's basically what you just said, like actually, like real physical change. The amount of times I've heard the excuse that we didn't have the budget, the time, the money, all this stuff. It's like time and money are made up. Like, just make more of it. If you want to make a change, put it in your budget. It's that fucking easy.
Yeah. See, I've given her permission to swear now. It's all right.
You started, I'm going to keep going.
But that's because we're related, so.
Yeah. Sharyn, did you want to add anything around that? Oh, you've done a lot of work with collaborations and with public arts. How's your experience been with that?
Oh, I'm just really...
Put your mic up.
Really? Oh, hello. Hello, boys.
Hello, boys.
Just the best impersonation of H.G. Nelson. Yeah. Oh, anyway, I was just saying, I'm just
You
so...
are never this shy when it comes to karaoke, though. So there's a different Sharyn sitting here.
Yeah. Yes, I'm just really, really... I don't like saying proud. Inspired, amazed, like you guys, like these young people up and coming, and because I'm from an era where you didn't speak out. If you spoke Nyoongar, they go, "What do you talk, mumbo jumbo?" And you were just embarrassed into silence. So to me, this is just awesome. So thank you all, and Carol.
Sorry, just let me catch up.
Do you want me to keep going?
We've seen a lot of changes in the last 5 years. It's not all doom and gloom, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here smiling and being a part of your evening this evening. So over the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of this change, and I think we need to celebrate what we have on the platform here with all of you this evening. But where might we be in another 5 years? And what do you want us to be? I think, Chloe, you can go first because you're bursting.
I don't know, I guess in terms of change, like one of the biggest things is having some people somewhere in those senior roles. I've gotten to partake in nepotism for the first time. It's a lot of fun. I totally get it. I understand why y'all have been hoarding that one for years. It's great getting your friends in to do stuff. So much fun. But I guess like in 5 years, you just want to see more of this, more of like in 5 years, you want 5 people sitting up here who do completely different things that have never been done before.
As an independent artist, I think 5 years from now, even now, I'm thinking about succession planning and, how do we pass our skills on and what we do to someone who's younger and smarter and fitter than I am. I'm trying to lead kids through head, shoulders, knees and toes in Nyoongar. At the moment it works because we get kids up because they're much fitter and more agile and my back goes out more than I do. But, in 5 years, Guy and I, we started this, when did we start doing workshops? 2015, I think. So we've been doing that for 7 years, take 2 years because of the C word. But, I can't see myself doing this much beyond. We're like the Black Wiggles at the moment. I call us the Bliggles. But I don't want to be, except no skivvies, right? But I don't want to be like, it's fun in my 50s, but I can't see myself doing that in my 60s. And so, but who's going to be doing that? And so, how do we skill those people up? And who has the the capacity and the energy to be able to, and the desire to want to see that change. One of the key moments in my world happened in the early 90s when I was working for GWN, when I was a reporter and presenter for Milbindi. We went to these language meetings that were held with our elders, our Bridias, the language holders, and they all gathered, and for 3 days, it was a 3-day conference, and for 2.5 days they argued about how to spell Nyoongar.
No joke.
It's not a joke. It actually happened, and I realised that this was a really important process, and people took it very seriously. And I remember standing around the campfire with some elders, and my uncle said, my niece, we got 10 years. If we don't have this sorted out in 10 years' time, this language is going to disappear and it's not coming back. And it broke my heart, and I thought, what could I do? And I at the time I didn't speak language, and I remember thinking if there was ever a way that I could help this, I could sort this, I would do it, and I'd do it with everything. And my hope is that there would be some young people that have that same desire to see this language and see our culture, because you can't separate language from culture. And so we want to make sure that this language stays and it remains, and it's used, and it's not just used as something like in a museum, like a curio, where you put your gloves on and you handle it and you're very careful. Like, I'd love to see, imagine when planes land, they're taxiing, and over the speakers, instead of hearing, "Welcome to Perth," you hear, "Whadjuk, Whadjuk, Wabadakura." Right? There's got to be some tourism mob up the back there. There you go. You can make it happen. On ya. But those sorts of things, I think that's where I'd like to, in 5 years' time, I would like to see a much stronger language presence, at least in the capital. And we're seeing change, and I'm confident of that, but that would be the big cookie for me.
Well, Gina, if you go into the Perth airport and you see where you're travelling to, all the Noongar languages are up there on the front. So Sydney, you're heading into Gadigal.
Perfect.
Everywhere it's happening. So a lot of us haven't been to many airports in the last few years,
No,
other than
I
the
haven't.
miners, and I hope that they take note, because that's it's a big lesson for those people. Chloe, 5 years' time.
So many things.
Yes, okay. Roll them out.
Living wage for artists, all visual artists, for the love of God, because they were some of the hardest hit people, apart from performing artists, in our communities. So that's what we're actively fighting for at the moment. And actually, interestingly, the Arts Minister is highly sympathetic, which is extraordinary, and interested, for federal, I'm talking about. Secondly, I'm sick of being a general, and I'm tired of asymmetrical warfare. I want to have an army that also includes non-Indigenous people, so that we can actually move everything forward, but particularly in the visual arts, obviously for me, because that's my area of interest. And I am actively succession planning. I've been doing that for a really long time. So I do create opportunities for writers, for curators, for you name it. I have my lovely Zali sitting there, who's my assistant curator at AGWA, who I'm actively succession planning as we speak, thank God, because I hope to be able to hand over to her in 5 years' time. And then I'm going to go sit somewhere in maybe Tuscany, my love. My partner's in the... and not be... It takes a lot of work. I think that's the thing I really want to say about this particular group of people, and I'm sorry to you, but it takes so much work to actually get to this point. Glenn, who obviously organised this thing, knows this. He's been doing this as long as I have, and we have lots of these conversations, and you get tired. And so you do, all of us, I think, have to think about succession planning and about who we're going to pass that over to, because we cannot do this forever. We can't. We will burn out. But for me particularly, I think that investment in artists in this community, so that we're not seen as having to monetise, and I'm not just talking about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, but all artistic cultural material and output in this country, in the UK and in Europe, it is not seen as an add-on that needs to be monetised or that you ask funding for necessarily. It is seen as intrinsic to the cultural well-being of your nation. And that's eventually what I want to see happen in Australia, that intrinsically art and culture, including the performing arts, including theatre and music and everything else, is seen as intrinsic to who we are as a nation. That's not going to be in 5 years. That might take another 50. But that's ultimately, we have to succession plan for that too.
Thanks, Chloe. Chloe, what would you like to see in 5 years' time as the youngest on the block? You've done it? Yeah. You've done yours?
Yes. No.
And we got truth syrup
Could you imagine, though? Sorry, it just
Yeah.
occurred to me. Could you imagine if you were paid to do your practice rather than for someone else's project?
I've imagined it many times.
That would be
That's what we're fighting
extraordinary,
for.
wouldn't it?
those ideas are coming up.
Yeah, so I think, like, 5 years' time, there will be another Sandra Hill class, a degree in contemporary Aboriginal art, and people, because it's a safe place when you're, because when we go to art school after being brought up in a mission, then fostered out, and then they throw you into this art space, and there's all white people, and you don't speak their language. You know those words, arty words and uni words, and then you just feel really like you don't belong or you can't fit in, and a lot of people just don't keep going. It's like being in a foreign place and you're different, and so you need places where you can feel safe, and especially the younger people coming up, like when they walk up the street and you get people cross the street to avoid them, and it still happens, and little kids don't understand why people are doing that to them. Yeah, so 5 years maybe have some. I think there's one Indigenous art course now. There used to be about 40 or 50 in TAFEs and that. There's one for Aboriginal people. We have to sort of assimilate, and sometimes for young people it's just too hard.
The National Art School are just developing one at the moment. They have 3 Aboriginal staff and they're writing the curriculum as we speak, which is good. So it'll make it 2.
Yes.
Okay, some of these challenges and barriers that have kept our people back over the years. I can see a beautiful man down the back who's bitten through a lot of those barriers and still fighting for a lot of what we do. But I guess, what is your approach, Gina and Chloe and Sharyn, to cultural and professional leadership? And you've had a number of those with your stuff that you've done. If you want to share that.
As someone who's been surrounded by the naysayers and the people that will tell you why you can't do stuff. And look, it hasn't always been rainbows and bunnies and butterflies. When Guy and I started doing language and we were coming up to the release of our first album, we had hate mail. We had really vicious, venomous emails sent to us regularly, and it wasn't like just it was frightening. And I think, someone much smarter than me said, would you go to those people for advice? And I thought, no. And he said, well, then you have no right to take their criticism. And I think that's the key is, and this is what we've proven, my own internal voice. I have serious issues with anxiety, and my own internal voice talks me out of things a million times a day. But the only way to shut that stuff down and to shut those voices down, whether they're internal or external, is to just get up and keep going. And when you fall down, you get up. If you fall down 5 times, get up 6 times. It's that whole idea that people will believe some of what you say, but they will always believe what they see you doing. And so I think that's the only way to try and defeat that stuff, whether it's, so, yeah. Oh, and I cry a lot, and I watch a lot of We Bare Bears on telly. That's my happy place.
Chloe, did you want to bring that around this conversation? What about you? What have you had to What's your approach? When you
There's
talked about your
been a lot.
family.
Actually, recently we did a thing at the art gallery. So you've got to have good allies. So Colin Walker is my director at the art gallery WA. He's an amazing dude. I really like him. I respect him, and he backs every single thing that I do without a second thought. So I absolutely need that. And I sit on the exec with him and a number of other people, and I have complete faith that he'll back me in everything. So that's not easy to always say with the people that you work with. So that's important. We did a thing called Blacklight recently at the art gallery, and it was a complete takeover of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander work throughout the entire gallery. And the amount of, speaking about hate mail, Jesus, the amount of hate mail, letters, social media, emails that we got about Blacklight, directed to me and to Colin. We got marketing to make us some postcards with one of the terms that they used, which was cultural vandal, and we have them up in our office because that's one of the nicer things that we were called. It is 2022, may I remind you, and we don't live in apartheid in WA, although sometimes I think that still exists in some people's minds. So the shit that we are still contending with is real, and that's where good allyship comes in, where you have people that absolutely back you who will not tolerate that kind of behaviour. And there was a range of things that occurred in response to that the gallery went, we are standing by you and we're going to do this, this, this and this to combat it. And that's really, really critical, because it is actually, I get frustrated when we talk about leadership and it's based on individuals. Actually, leadership can be entire organisational change. Yep. That's great leadership. Yes, it might start with one person, but it actually needs to sometimes have the weight of an institution behind it to actually make it, carry that through. So for me, that's always been really critical about having the backing of a really good team, really good staff around you to kind of help you not only show that leadership, and Gina and I did a thing called Accelerate many years ago, which we both learned. With Mr. Bradfield, and Glenn's done it as well. There's a number of us who have done it. And one of the things that we talked about is that leadership is not just leading from the front, but leading from behind, bringing everyone up with you, and that's kind of what I think it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Chloe, you've talked about some amazing things that you've been involved with. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm still desperately clinging to my title as an emerging artist. Very desperately. Anna Koski's shaking her head because technically I'm mid-career, but I'm clinging on to emerging. COVID doesn't count, so you can subtract 2 years. Yeah. I guess for the younger generation coming through, it's just about questioning everything that's been there before us. Mum always jokes that I'm Generation Y, because as a kid I'd just be like, why? So I think that any time someone who has been somewhere for a very long time and is part of the furniture tells you that's the way it's always been done, just question why and just keep going until it starts to change.
I was very privileged to be part of a project that Sharyn worked on, and although she doesn't want to share, the leadership she showed and the professionalism of working with 22 elders, 5 other artists, to create a piece of work that stands the test of time of all of us, a 10 by 8 metre canvas that Sharyn was one of the lead female artists in. Her cultural leadership, professionalism was outstanding, because the things that we have to do, and even though we all think we're pretty deadly getting a project like that, it gets to be one of the hardest things that we can do, because we have to listen and listen. And that's what we did, and in 6 weeks a beautiful piece of work was created. But the journey to that creation was over 2.5 years. 2.5 years of taking artists down many highways, meeting people that they'd never met before, travelling across country that they'd never met before. And I think that is sort of the message in this challenge that we talk about of professional leadership within the arts, is although many of you who may lead projects or develop projects, work with us, share with us, learn from us, and we'll learn together. Because although the work that comes on show is the artist, it's the journey that that person has taken before that artist is finished, that art piece is finished. And we want people to feel a part of that process. So I want to thank you. Very honoured. I feel a very honoured space here tonight. And I was very excited, Glenn, so thank you. Very excited to be a part of this conversation and watching all of these women grow to what they've grown to over many years. It hasn't been an easy space here in the arts when you consider, there's some work to be done, and I hope that through arts and culture that they consider how Aboriginal arts is portrayed through this state. We can't just provide buildings, we need to provide structural shift and change to allow our people to progress up in many fields. So as we come to a bit of a close this evening, and thank you all for coming to be engaged in this beautiful conversation, beautiful journey of all of these fantastic women. We might just ask an easier question. Your role models that you want to share with all these ladies and gentlemen in this room. Who have been your role models and your mentors, and what do you hope to be, what do you hope role models and mentors to be for those in the future?
Well, mine's a bit, being a bit of a late starter. I think all my role models are younger than me. Like yourself. These Yorgers here, Glenn. Like, same age as my son, but, amazing. I've learnt so much from him. Yeah. And so many other young people. Esther Kickett, somewhere here. There, look. Another Murich young York. Yeah. He's just got this power. And keep it. And, because when I was your age, I was, head down and doing this. Shame, just full of shame and... Yeah, so just being around you people, it's just... It did start with Sandra Hill. I've gone, oh my God, who's this woman? She speaks really well and she's, out there, she's done this and done that. And stand in front of all these people and speak. And I was about 37. But it's never too late. Yeah. And you can always learn off young people.
Oh, thanks. You. Chloe.
My mum, obviously, she'd probably murder me if I didn't say that. I guess I've got lots of aunties and stuff who are all, none of them are in the arts or anything like that, but they're the kind of really loud-mouth women who don't let anything slip past you. So I've learnt a lot from them as role models. In the arts, there's heaps of great people. There's too many to name, I guess.
Thank you. Chloe.
My mum's not here, so I'm not going to say my mum because she didn't come. So no, she couldn't. She was looking after all their grandchildren. It's okay. But I don't know if you probably heard of a great man called Charlie Perkins, Freedom Rides. He has a wonderful daughter called Hetty Perkins, and Hetty was one of only 4 Aboriginal curators in the country back in the day. And when I say back in the day, it was literally only about, 25 years ago. One of only 4. And she has been my mentor and my role model for a really long time. I was a single mum for a really long time until, relatively recently. And Hetty was also a single mum and managed to, as one of only 4 Aboriginal curators in the country, managed to carve the most extraordinary career for herself out of that. Staunch and loving and wise and kind, and also kicks your ass if you need it. So for me, that was an incredible role model and still is.
Gina.
I think all my mums and dads, my biological family, my foster families, my adopted family, those parents all taught me they were either fantastic shining examples or they were horrible cautionary tales, but both really important. I think in more recent times, you know, people like Auntie Roma Winmar, Auntie Liz Hayden, you know, Dr. Richard Wally and Robin. Richard was one of the first people I encountered when I started working at Nyoongar Radio back in the late 80s, and they've been a fantastic, not just a great support, but actually really good role modelling. You know, Brother Barry Maguire, in fact that whole Maguire family, my Uncle Tom Hayden, my Uncle Dennis Jetta, and then, you know, people like yourselves, all of you in different ways have been, you know, Carol, like I said to you, I've loved you for as long as I've known you, and, you know, Chloe, I remember seeing you when I interviewed you and walking away. We drove home back to Bunbury, the cameraman and I, and all I could think was, man, when I grow up, I want to be just like you, you know. And now I look
feel
at
like that cameraman was like quite attractive as well.
I don't know.
From memory?
I'm not sure. It's like my best friend, one of my best friends you're talking about. That's weird and creepy. It's like asking me if you could date my brother. Ew. And in more recent times, you know, I look at my kids and I want them to inherit a world that's kind and inclusive and generous and awesome. And again, I look at my daughters in particular, and like I said to you, I want to be like my daughters when I grow up, because they're amazing human beings. But I think, you know, the person I really want to pay the most tribute to is the person I work with, Guy Gauss. You know, it was his idea for me to sing language. I was like, I can't get people listening in English. And yet he persisted and persevered with me, and he was in the trenches with me when, you know, when I really didn't want to do this because I was anxious and my nerves were wreaking havoc with the rest of my life. And, you know, he's my best friend, and I still, like, I take advice from him. I listen to his advice. I don't always take it. I do go away and think about it. But, you know, I think, you know, that's... And also the other allies in the industry that we have. You know, Guy and I, we keep our circle really, really small, just out of necessity. But the people, once you're in our world, you stay in that. We never forget that, and you stay in that forever. And I think that's, you know, as much as I appreciate financial support for things, I also you appreciate people's time, because you can't. Once you give that away, you can't take that back. And I think that's really, you know, over a long period of time, I've come to understand the value of that. And obviously our families and things who get around us and support us. Because I'm like, you know, look, I'm a single mum, and, you know, it's hard work and trying to be all of those things in the broader world, and then going home and being mum to people who go, actually, mum, you're not a rock star, you're not really that cool. You know, it keeps you very humble. And I think that's the thing also about our elders, is that they're always thinking about community. Our elders, our leaders are those that they're not necessarily thinking about how they can further themselves. They want it to be good for everybody. So if it's good for somebody else, then we all succeed. It's good for all of us. And I think that's a really important lesson. So they're my heroes, and they're the role models. And I hope one day I can grow up to be as rockin' as Auntie Roma, as wise and as kind as Auntie Liz, you know, and as cheeky as my little mum was, rest in peace. I think that would be the most amazing combination.
Thank you, ladies. So, closing out tonight, before I've got to give you one last word, something that we wanted to just add to everyone. One last word from you, Sharyn. to lift the spirits of the people in the room who sat with us this evening, to find a little bit more out about all of you. What is one last thing that you'd like them to know about you and your journey, and what you'd like them to do?
Don't forget your mic, love.
I've got COVID, fuzz, brain. Yeah. Yeah.
You want me to go first? I just finished. They're sick of me.
Okay, we've got an album launch on the 21st, 22nd and 23rd downstairs at the Madge. So if you want to know any more about me, come to that. I'll tell you everything you need to know.
Tonight we've travelled on a numerous journey, over 30 plus years of these ladies' lives, long enough in your lifetime. But in the journey of those 30 years, what we've had to deal through in Aboriginal affairs has been harder for all of us as a people. So the arts is not just for you to look at, hear and feel. Your arts is an opportunity for challenge. And these ladies have challenged in everything that they have done and what they will do and continue to do. So thank you all for coming out this evening. I want to say thank you to Gina Williams, and she'll give her a mic and she'll plug the next gig, so thank you. For Chloe, thank you so much. It's great having you home with us and continuing your journey and the educating space that you provide for all of the ones who work with you, alongside you, and that you'll mentor into the future will be fantastic. Watch this space because we've got some exciting things coming our way. Chloe, thank you for being the generous heart you've been so open, sharing, and your journey, and so proud of the work that you're doing. Your strength that's coming from your family to deliver what you've done, the way you've travelled across country. I mean, that is a huge confidence that you've been able to take from someone who just went to her own creative space. So thank you for joining us tonight. Sharyn Egan is the most unassuming, most precious lady I call a friend, a sister, and her journey has been something that every single one of you need to understand. If you understand Sharyn's story, you'll understand more about us as a people and what we stand for and how we fight. Because inside of all of us, the turmoil still happens, like Gina talks about, the anxiety. Gina's not the only one. It happens with nearly every single one of us. And the journey that we stand up to every single day, and that all of you walk beside us, will never know, but you need to find out that. You need to lean in closer. You need to understand, listen deeper. So thank you for journeying with us and sharing in the beautiful lives of these ladies.